Down. I'm David Ivy, and this is Dynamic Discussions. This is another installment in a weekly video series we're bringing you about safety products and how to use them. This week, we have a special guest, Rachel Walla with Ally Safety. Rachel, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Hi. Yeah, I'm with Ally Safety. It's a company that I started, and I started out doing consulting. I'm a safety professional and an industrial hygienist. And I started doing YouTube videos about 2 years ago because I just liked making video content. And I thought that safety training left a lot to be desired, and in some cases was just brutally boring. So I started making YouTube videos and putting them on YouTube with just little safety training topics, and since then, it's grown into pretty much full-time video creation. So over the last year, we finished our first 20 OSHA compliant full-length courses that we're now licensing to other training platforms. So it's been really busy and exciting and kind of like a weird career pivot, but definitely a good thing.
Yeah, it's been a good thing for us as well. It was a pleasure having you here a few months back to do some testing of some of our products and some of the best content that you'll find. So at the end, we'll have people understand how to get a hold of you and view your content. So we do have a question.
Okay.
Is what technology or resources are available that can be used to streamline worksite safety and help workers embrace safety culture?
Well, I think that there's a lot that's available now. And initially, when I got into this industry more than 10 years ago, there wasn't much out there. Everybody was like, "Oh, we need an app. We want to make an app." And that was something that was way too far out to even happen. But now there's a lot of technology, and it actually can be quite time saving and good for your day-to-day work life balance if you can implement the right stuff. So what I personally like is there's some fit for work apps that are really excellent. They can test people's fitness for work. There's also some really cool things around like musculoskeletal and teaching people how to be safer with their lifting, which is of course like the number one cause of workplace injuries, musculoskeletal disorders, and those sort of lifting repetitive motion injuries. So anything you can do to prevent those, including wearable tech, is really awesome. Another thing that I would definitely recommend is make sure that you have a good software system. There's a ton of them out there, and it'll vary by every organization which one is right for you. But that can be super helpful. I still know so many safety people who are writing reports or inputting everything into an Excel spreadsheet, and it's just not necessary anymore. And of course, for me, I'm going to plug training because I think, if you have a good training app where people can get point of use training, like scan a QR code on a fire extinguisher, and that QR code will pop up a quick video about how to inspect fire extinguishers, that is the best use case for things like that. So training is something that can be automated, it can be on an app, and it can be accessible by anybody. So those are my suggestions. And I really think that just starting to implement those and getting familiar with what's out there is key to finding the right solution for what your unique workplace needs are.
Yeah, and like anything, technology is always advancing. So it's really cool to see, how safety has evolved even over the last few years, the last 10 years since you've been in it. So on the note of the training, since you're kind of a professional in that, do a lot of it. So what does OSHA say about some training? Is the video training now, is that OSHA, I guess, do they approve that as training now, or do you still have to do some classroom stuff, or does the video suffice as your training?
Well, I think that video is an excellent way to introduce people to concepts, and you can demonstrate things that they wouldn't necessarily see in the field, which is awesome. But I don't know that it's a great thing to substitute all your training for video training. I think in the field training is just critical. And when you can learn from the people around you who have more experience in that specific role, it's really, really important that you utilize that. For some training topics, you can completely do video. Um, but I would also say you don't want to take all the responsibility off yourself because so many different companies have policies that are not identical to OSHA's rules and regulations. And so in those cases, they may need to embellish the training a little bit or add to it in some way or another. So you can do that fairly easily, whether it's just incorporating a few slides into a video at the end that say, this is our specific policy and how we handle this. Or if you do it in a classroom setting, you can have somebody get up and talk in front of the group. But so many of these OSHA required trainings have to be annual. I think forklift training is one that comes to mind with one that's every 3 years. You get a little bit of a break there, but you really want to make sure you do that refresher training on the right frequency. And then, of course, anytime that you have somebody who, let's say, is involved in an accident or incident or is caught not utilizing the safety policies and procedures appropriately, you need to do that sort of refresher training for them too, the remedial training. So there's a lot of need for training, and it can be very exhausting for safety professionals to be providing it all themselves. So if you have a good content provider, it's definitely a huge time saver.
Great thing for safety managers to have resources that they can rely on with products and training, things like that. And safety managers often juggle a ton of things. And
Exactly.
it's almost like you can't not make a mistake. So I want to ask you, Rachel, what is the biggest mistake that you see safety managers make?
Okay. Well, I'll just speak for myself when I was a safety manager. I mean, I I think safety managers are expected to wear so many different hats and do so many different things. And I think the biggest mistake we find ourselves getting into is that we are reactive when we know we want to be proactive towards safety. But oftentimes there's a shortage of safety professionals out there, even before like the great resignation and all that. A lot of companies don't have the safety resources that they need. And so safety professionals are just overloaded with work. So they end up putting out fires, barely keeping up, and they're not able to really focus on improvement as much as they would like. So the biggest mistake I think is we become reactive because we're just too busy. Now, the way that I would solve that and the way that I was solving that at my last job is you work to make sure that you can put systems in place that work, and that's kind of difficult because you've got to step away from the day to day to work on those systems and implement them and create them. But that's the only way I've ever found that really works to get ahead. So that is things like, having a good software program, trying out what's new on the market. For example, I think that the X series, not to plug for you guys, I think that the X series for some of the companies that I've worked for and consulted with would be excellent just because safety professionals sometimes spend a lot of time running around trying to find solutions to fall protection problems. Training, when I was a safety professional, I love training, obviously. I love trying to make it interesting. But there were weeks where I would do 8 hours of instructor led training per week in front of a large group. And so it's the same speech over and over and over. And even if you don't want to like use an off the shelf training video, why not just film yourself the first time and then play the video a couple times? Yeah, it's embarrassing to be on camera at first and it's difficult, but you will save yourself so much time. So I just would use hacks like that to find ways to make your life easier because as we know in safety, it's a very high burnout job. It's high stress, it's difficult, and often there's just not enough resources for what we're tasked to do. So you've got to find a way to make the job a little bit easier on yourself because if you're burnt out, you won't be effective.
Yeah, you make a really good point. Safety managers, they do have a wide kind of job scope. It's not like they're only doing fall protection or they're only doing the training. They're generally doing your training, your ergonomics, dealing with hazardous waste, everything from top to bottom. So it is a very high stress job. So you do see there's often room for mistakes, but it's nice, as you said, to bring in some of that technology, the resources, and help streamline their job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's probably the only way we can find some sanity in it. At least right now as well. I keep getting all these emails from recruiters who are like, "Hey, do you know anybody who's in the market for a new position?" And it's like, no, everybody's busy. So I know that the safety professionals out there, especially after 2 years of COVID, are really feeling it now.
Right. Well, Rachel, thanks so much for giving some of your knowledge. Thanks for stopping by and being a guest on Dynamic Discussions. Let our folks know how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so check out Ally Safety. That's ALLY safety.com. That's my main webpage. And check out some of our videos. They're awesome and they're free. They're on YouTube. So Ally Safety on YouTube. We just hit 1.5 million views and we're almost up to 12,000 subscribers. So it's been an exciting 2 years.
Great.
Thank you, Rachel.